A major twist in a high-profile case. The remains of missing Ole Miss graduate Jimmie J. Lee have been found nearly 3 years after his disappearance sent shockwaves through the community. This comes just weeks after a mistrial was declared for the accused killer, who had argued that without a body, there was no case. But now, everything has changed. I'll take you through the latest developments. For Law & Crime News, I'm Kennedi Walker. He had just texted his mom happy birthday, a simple message that would end up being the last anyone heard from 20-year-old Jay Lee. Hours later, he vanished. Prosecutors argue that Jay was lured to his death by Sheldon Timothy Harrington, a man he had a sexual relationship with. But there was one major problem. Police could not find his body. Harrington denied killing Jay, and his defense team argued that without a body, how could he possibly be charged with murder? The jury was deadlocked and the judge declared a mistrial, but now the very evidence Harrington's defense claimed didn't exist has finally been uncovered. This case dates back to July 2022. Jay had recently graduated from the University of Mississippi, commonly known as Ole Miss, that spring. He was known for his active role in Oxford's LGBTQ+ community and his involvement as a local drag queen. On the morning of July 8th, police say Jay went missing, wearing only gray slippers, a silver robe, and a gold bonnet. His mother, Stephanie, said Jay had texted her earlier that morning, wishing her a happy birthday. But when she didn't hear from him later that day, she testified she knew something was wrong.
That was my birthday, and Jay would call me every year on my birthday to sing happy birthday, no matter what time it was.
Stephanie said she and her husband had gone out of town to celebrate, but as the hours passed, with no word from Jay, her concern started to grow.
I just told my husband, I said, I hadn't heard from Jay. This is not normal. I said, Jay would have called, and which my husband knows already too. He said, that's strange. He ain't called. I said, yes, he had to call. I hadn't heard from the early on text, and I was just worried the whole trip down there. So we proceeded to go on down there, and we got to our destination, and I just continued to try and call Jay periodically throughout the day, and didn't get a response.
Stephanie's motherly intuition was telling her something was wrong. So she and her husband cut their vacation short, drove back the next day to check on Jay, and called the police.
I said that I made a number of calls to Oxford PD doing wellness check. I called periodically through the day of July 8th, probably 9-10 times, maybe more, I'm not sure, but I kept calling and telling them that I needed them to go and do a wellness check with my baby.
Then she noticed Jay's location was turned off. She says she immediately reached out to Jay's friends, hoping someone would know where he was.
I knew that he communicated with Jose. So I reached out to my oldest child and I said, can you communicate with Jose? Can you find his number on Instagram or somewhere so maybe he can go over to the apartment to see if he sees Jay's car or something, what's going on, because they can't contact Jay. So in the process of this, Taylor communicated with Jose, and Jose went over to the apartment, and he communicated back with us and said, well, Mama Lee, I hear the dog in the house, I hear Lexus there. And Jay wouldn't leave Lexus too often because Jay take Lexus everywhere he go. I hear the dog in the apartment, but I don't see Jay's car.
Now Stephanie is starting to panic. She and her husband rush to Jay's apartment, but when they get there, he's nowhere to be found, so she called the police again. The search quickly ramped up, with authorities eventually finding Lee's car at a local towing agency. For weeks, they scoured the area for any sign of his body, but could not find him. Then, on July 22nd, they made an arrest. Sheldon Timothy Harrington was taken into custody and charged with Jay's murder. Both men had attended the same university, but what was the connection between them, and how did they know each other? Well, the prosecution laid it all out. Sergeant Benjamin Douglas with the University of Mississippi Police Department took the stand and walked through the social media and Google records that investigators say placed Lee at Harrington's apartment on the day he disappeared.
But we were able to see the messages that Jimmie had received. In those messages, we found texts in the time frame that Jimmie had left his apartment that sounded as though he was going to meet somebody that he had already met. Messages like, "come back."
According to court documents, Harrington messaged Jay saying, "come back," in the early morning hours of July 8th, the same day Jay went missing. Prosecutors say that Jay had blocked Harrington on Snapchat after falling out that same morning. But that did not stop Harrington. The defendant allegedly reached out to Lee from a different Snapchat account that Lee didn't recognize. Police then obtained another search warrant, this time for Harrington's Snapchat messages. His account, Red Eye 24, was examined, and here's what Sergeant Douglas testified was found.
So it's Jay Lee, he says, "who the is this?" And then he sends a question mark. He then sends, "what did you delete?"
Into the microphone.
What did you just delete? He then sends, Jay Lee then sends, "you made it like this." Red Eye responds, "come back" at 5:26 a.m.
Okay. And the next message, who is that?
Harrington sends, "you coming or nah" at 5:26:54 a.m.
Continue on, please.
Lee then says no at 5:27. Harrington asks why not. Harrington then sends 2 question marks.
At what time?
At 5:31:43 a.m.
The conversation then revealed details of a recent sexual encounter between the two men. And in one message, Jay even mentioned Harrington by name.
Jay Lee, he says, "like you done did some questionable but that was too much." Jay Lee then says, "have a good night, Tim."
That simple mention was a crucial confirmation that Tim Harrington was the person Jay had been speaking to.
The next message is from Jay Lee, and it says, "yeah, now it seems like you just trying to lure me over there to beat my ass or something."
What about the next? And what time was that sent?
That was sent at 5:37:16 a.m.
And what about the next?
The next was sent from Red Eye, which is Tim Harrington, and says, "you tripping. I do feel bad because we cool. I ain't trying to end it like this." The next is from Jay Lee, and it says, how we cool, and you barely want me to text you."
You can please tell me the timestamps as well.
That was sent at 5:39:10 a.m. The next was Harrington. It says, "I'm saying you're a cool person" at 5:39:54 a.m.
The messages continue, detailing their alleged sexual relationship, and Jay eventually agreed to meet Harrington at his apartment. Records show that less than 5 minutes after Jay agreed to meet, Harrington Googled, "how long does it take to strangle someone, Gabby Petito?" You may recall Gabby Petito was tragically killed by her fiancé when they were traveling together on a cross-country road trip. The prosecution later called a Walmart employee who testified that Harrington purchased a roll of duct tape that same day, and he even presented the receipt in court. Surveillance video captured the moment Jay arrived at the defendant's apartment. It was the last time anyone saw Jay Lee alive. A few minutes later, security footage shows a man believed to be Harrington running away from the Molly Bars Trails apartment complex. We would later learn that Jay's car was towed from that apartment complex, and police discovered it a couple days after his family reported him missing. Cameras from a nearby gas station captured the same man who was seen running earlier. He got into a white Kia Optima, and the driver quickly took off. The driver later identified Harrington to police. During the course of the trial, more information came out, including the fact that Harrington was not openly gay to his friends and family. Harrington's father testified that he didn't know his son was interested in men until Timothy was arrested.
And were you aware that Timothy had an interest in men?
No.
Today, are you aware that he has an interest in men?
By the proceedings, yes.
And so, back in 2022, were you aware that he had an interest in men?
Other than the reports that came out.
So after the reports came out is when you discovered that?
Yes.
So he was not open with you about that?
No.
Is that something that your church approves of?
Not necessarily the church approves of. I think that with that, people have their own opinions.
At this point, it was clear the prosecution was attempting to build a case suggesting Harrington may have killed Jay to avoid being exposed to his friends and family as gay. They used surveillance footage to establish a timeline of Harrington's whereabouts, highlighting gaps where he could have disposed of Jay's body.
Family and his friends about his sexuality, being on the down low, they all thought he was into women. But we know there was a secret that he was keeping in his life. He lied to them, he lied to his church, his family, his friends. He lied to Jay Lee to get him over that night because he had a problem that he had to fix. Then he lied to the police about everything. Deception, lies. He had to protect that lie. And what did he do to protect that lie? In order to protect that lie, he had to get rid of jail.
Next, the prosecution revealed that Harrington, who was part owner of a moving company, had allegedly taken the company's box truck for the day. However, he did not inform his business partner that he would be using the truck.
And did you and Tim have any moves scheduled that day?
Not.
And usually, did you both know if you had moves scheduled?
Yes.
And who had keys to the box truck?
We both had a key.
So did anyone else have a key?
No.
So just you and Tim had keys?
Yes.
Surveillance footage shows Harrington allegedly driving the white box truck to his parents' home in Grenada, Mississippi, making 2 trips. On the first trip, he brought a full-size shovel, and on the second, a wheelbarrow. But despite the prosecution's case, defense attorney Kevin Horan argued that there was no proof Jay was murdered, since his body still had not been found. Harrington faced life in prison for Jay Lee's murder. The jury deliberated for more than 9 hours, but they couldn't reach a verdict. They were deadlocked. After 3 attempts to come up with a verdict, the judge declared a mistrial.
I'm going to declare a mistrial.
That mistrial happened in December of 2024. Now, less than 2 months later, everything has changed. Authorities confirmed that hunters found the remains of Jay Lee in Carroll County, Mississippi, ending the nearly 3-year search for his body. According to Mississippi Today, the remains included a gold necklace with Jay's name on it. So the big question on everyone's mind, now that his body has been found, what's next for Jay's accused killer, Timothy Harrington? Well, back in December, the prosecution said they'd be interested in retrying the case, and now with this new evidence, they could have a whole new opportunity to try him again. For Law and Crime, I'm Kennedi Walker.